You're muted.
Oh, hey.
This is 3 times in a week.
Three times in a week. What do you know? We're going to keep trying 3 times in a week because there's more meaning behind the 3 times in a week for me personally, which I'll do some other time. But welcome to another live stream. Which one is this, Jake? Is this like 9?
9.
All right. Welcome to live stream number 9. How you doing today, man?
Pretty good. A little bit slow. Probably. You had your margaritas and cinnamon toast crunch. What, 2 days? Two nights ago?
2 days ago. Yeah, 2 nights ago.
I went up and played some ping pong up in Cleveland with some old pals. So I don't know. It was great. It wasn't like I didn't get like wasted or anything. Like I had like a beer.
It's just enough.
And a lot of a good pizza. And then I came back just very late. My friend has moved. Now he's an hour away instead of 30 minutes. And I didn't really gauge that I would get back, and I went to sleep a lot later. But sustainable YOLO, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess. Well, then today is kind of and so now you got to work through it.
How about you?
Well, I'm good. Got a lot of things on my mind. There's always something on my mind for frankly managing cancer and all that bullshit that comes with it, like the amount of extra work it takes, right? It feels like a full-time job. And so you're like literally working that, but also trying to figure out a job and all of that good stuff and creating these things. Cause I feel like this is a big part of what I should be doing. So just managing all the inputs, man, just managing all the inputs and wondering what's going to come through and not come through. And I think that final part of not coming through is the perfect segue to our topic today.
I was like literally what you just described. Chad, my question would be, how would you reframe your scarcity mindset? We'll get into it in a second.
Yeah.
But
so today's topic, right? Well, first and foremost, these live streams, it's called breakthroughs. Get the breakthrough before something breaks you. It was strictly created because Jake and I both had something that broke us. I was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer about 3.5 years ago, still dealing with it. Jake had 3 strokes at the age of 30. Both of those things, we believe, were preventable. And when I say preventable, obviously Western medicine would maybe say otherwise, but it's starting to show that maybe these things that we triggered in ourselves, that's what we believe, were preventable. And a lot of it comes down to what we'll call these just normal problems of life, and then letting them go too far. And you can use a word like stress, right? Stress is a big umbrella term. There's a lot of these micro stresses, if you will. And so what we're hoping from these live streams is to just talk about a lot of these things that build up into a big possible breakage, meaning can we help people get the mental, emotional breakthroughs for themselves before something breaks them, right? Because we just don't want it to go too far. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so that's what it's about. Anything else you want to add to that before I get to the topic?
No, I think that sums it up. It's a lot of this I always like to describe it as things people don't know how to describe or don't know how to talk about. Like these mental stressors and emotional stressors just sort of, they build up and you don't know what's happening. And that is why you end up breaking. So we're trying to put plain language to things that people feel that are hard to describe, and so that they can have the breakthrough before something breaks them.
Totally.
Anyway, and so today's micro problem. Well, so this is one micro problem of many micro problems.
That's right. Build up. And they could obviously cascade into within one topic, but we try to stick to this topic, and then we often find more. So today it's really the simple framing of like how to reframe your scarcity mindset, right? Like how to reframe a scarcity mindset. Now, first thing we got to do is define what actual scarcity is. The first thing I'll say about scarcity mindset is, one, doesn't matter the socioeconomic status. It doesn't matter who you are or how great you are. It doesn't matter if you're LeBron James, right? Greatest basketball player of our time. Obviously, Michael Jordan's #1. I know that. But
careful.
Yeah. It's just because you're a homie, a Cleveland. Anyway, LeBron still has scarcity mindsets, right? You know, all these people do. And then all the way down, it doesn't matter where you're at in the spectrum. Everybody has scarcity mindset in their playing field, whatever playing field that is. The second thing is the actual meaning of scarcity. And so I'm going to pause because I've been talking a lot. So what in your head, like what is the definition of scarcity?
No, it's interesting because every time I do the intro and the topic introduction, I'm like, I've been talking for too long, but that's just how it's formatted at the moment. Anyway, I think one thing to note, and it's a good that you place this, like there's a spectrum of scarcity, or on the full spectrum of everybody's current life or lifestyle, there is some element of scarcity. And I think it's natural for the natural, what am I lacking, tends to default to a money scarcity element. Whereas LeBron James probably doesn't lack as much in the money realm, but there are other things that you can be scarce in. It's a mindset more so than I lack XYZ, right? It is this. So when I think about like what is scarcity, it is this like protective mechanism that you want to guard. You don't want to lose what you have more so than getting something new. Yeah. I think, there's this study that was done. I don't know by whom, but essentially they put two people in a room, right? And they divided them, or not in a room, they divided a group of people, and one group they gave them $20, or both groups had $20. And the idea was they had to do some task. And if they did the task successfully, then no, let me back this up. I've botched this because I didn't prepare this, but I just was thinking about it as I was talking about it. Both groups had to do a task. One group would get $20 if they did it successfully. The other group would lose $20 if they didn't do it successfully. And the group that had the risk of losing the $20 did better because they were more worried about losing what they already had than gaining something that they didn't have.
Yeah.
So, and that goes.
They use that study in marketing, right?
Maybe that's why I learned it.
They use that study in marketing because people are more afraid of losing something than the possibility of gaining. Right. And that's a psychological defense mechanism. I mean, that's actually just how the brain works, right?
Yeah. And you can apply that not just to $20. You can apply it to anything in your, like the big buckets of life, career, relationships, all of this stuff. Like, are you afraid to lose your partner more so? Not that you're like, there's so many others out there, but like job stuff too. Like, are you afraid to lose your job even if you hate the job? Because you're like, what would I have,
Yeah. Well, and when you live in that scarcity mindset, again, everybody is in it in their own way. Some are in it less than others, right? If you look at a scale of, we'll call it 100%, many people are like 98% scarcity mindset. Then on the flip side, you have people that are only 2% scarcity mindset. They still have it, but man, they're all on the opposite. They're like, everything is possible. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing with that scarcity mindset is like we can move that sliding scale. You can go from always 98% thinking that you're not going to get something, right? And you can move it to, I only think about that 50% of the time. It takes work. Mm-hmm. But the reason why this happens is because of how the brain operates, right? It's afraid of losing something. It's afraid of the loss. And so what happens is when you start thinking about loss, you'll start tunneling down into, if I lose this, then this happens, and this happens, then this happens, right? Whatever the loss may be, okay? Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you tunnel down, and you got to remember there's a term in science called psychoneuroimmunology. And what that means is when you have a thought about something, will produce the feeling of that thought, okay? It literally produces chemicals. And if you're in a scarcity mindset, majority of the time, your body is producing the chemicals that make you feel like you won't get the things you need, whatever it may be. And that's the tunneling aspect. You start to tunnel in, and when you tunnel, right, all the cognitive bandwidth drops because now you're going from this broad possibility into very narrow focus, right? Mm-hmm. So long-term thinking collapses, your emotional regulation collapses. And that's why people feel like shit.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what is it, can you describe what most people feel like when they are in a scarcity mindset? really it's
Well,
a
it's
survival
worry.
type of
Yeah.
mindset.
There's two modes in life. You're either in survival, you're in creation. But within those modes, right, there's also levels, right? In survival, you feel pressure, and then you feel some stress, and then you're in survival, right? But really, that's what you're feeling. You're feeling when you're in that, like, oh, this isn't going to work out, or I'm going to lose the job, or I'm going to whatever, right? You're just playing with that lever, right?
Mhm.
Of like, what is it going to feel like?
Yeah.
And I don't know. So the question is okay. So if that's what scarcity is, right? It feels like worry. If you like, just put all these words to what it feels like.
Yeah. Anxiety that
Anxiety.
you're
Yep.
not going to get the thing, or you're afraid of losing this thing that you already have.
Yep.
It could be
And all of, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but a lot of times with people are like, oh, well, that's just how I am.
Mhm.
That's actually not a true statement. Sure, that's kind of who you are now, but you can actually change that. You can literally change that part of you, right? And go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to agree that like a lot of that sense is developed over time. It's wired into your brain. It's not like you were necessarily born with it. It was wired in over time through your life experiences and all of the things that have happened to you, which means if it is wired in, it can be unwired.
That's right.
Differently. And I mean, I always think about like it's not like I'm not saying it's easy. I think that's the first thing, because like it's probably one of the hardest things. What we're trying to talk about here is reframing, or like changing your mindset, which is this big fluffy term, and like, okay, but like sounds great, but it seems impossible because I've lived decades of my life in one mode of thinking and how to approach things, and now I have to switch that. And I always just think about, our grandma was a refugee from World War II, and like the way I mean, I was 10 or whatever, and the things she saved and she held on to naturally because she went through some shit. And like, I'm not going to blame her for that, but like, is it keeping her back from, these other things that from possibility, from creating and thinking forward, instead of always thinking like, oh, I don't want to lose these things? Now that's that's hard to tell somebody, but for the people watching this live stream, if you want to flip that switch and you are like, I want the agency to be able to do that, then this is who we're talking to, I guess, the people who are like, I know I've got this thing, or I'm becoming aware of it and I want to change it. So like, what do I do about that?
Yeah. So look, you're right in the sense of reframing, and like, you're asking me to reframe my whole mindset and who I am and all that. Like that's a big thing. That's a lot. So what I'm getting at is just two simple things, right? One, it's becoming aware that it's happening. And that's actually pretty easy to do once we get to the next part, which is two, just identify one place in life. And if you can identify the one thought, right, that triggers just one moment, then you can actually change one thing. And once you do change one thing, you're like, shoot, maybe I can change a second thing, maybe a third thing, maybe a fourth thing. And before you know it, you actually change like all your actual state of being.
It's almost like you're developing a skill to reframe. Like, I think people know this idea of reframing and change my mindset, but it is a skill. It's like there is a logical thing where you're like, I have to become aware of it. What does that look like so that I can catch it when it happens? Okay, now that I've caught it, what do I do with that information? How do I flip it? Like, what is the actual thing? Because I think there's a lot of ways to change your mindset and reframe, but we're using reframe because it is something you can do today, like right now. And it's just a skill and a habit that you build. So can you like give an example of, we talked about it earlier at the whole apartment thing. Like, can you give an example of what that would look like?
Yeah. So I'm going to give a general concept, right? And then I'm going to give one specifically for myself. Do you have one as well, or should I just do mine? You tell me.
I have a personal one, but I like the one that we talked about where it's like kind of like anybody can relate to that.
Yeah. So I have one where anybody can relate to, and then two, one that is a little, we'll call it heavier, because it's personal to me. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm asking if you have one, because I just want to make sure we have time for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mine will be quick. But yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to give the general one, then you go, then I'll go again. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to follow up a heavy one.
Yeah. That's
mine's not as heavy.
Yeah. So the general one is this, right? Let's just say, let's use finding an apartment or a house. Okay. And let's say you live in, it doesn't matter where you live, but you're like, I got to get a new apartment. And you're looking for this new apartment and you have all these listings and, you check them all out, right? You need one that fits what you're looking for, pricing, timing, all that stuff. And as soon as you start funneling down, you start narrowing the options. And let's say you find one, you're like, this one's perfect, right? This is exactly what I want. And all of a sudden, because it's exactly what you want, you emotionally become attached to it, right? And so once the emotion is attached to it, then your brain starts to get into the protection mode because your brain's there. And then you start to apply for this thing and you go through this process. And it could be for buying a house. It doesn't matter what it is, right? Buying a house or renting a house or apartment. But now you're attached to it and you want it. And so you start going through the process to get it. And when you start going through the process to get it, oftentimes people will say, as soon as they get that emotional attachment to it, they're like, oh, shoot. But what if it doesn't come through? Like, why didn't they respond to me quickly? Why aren't they getting back to me? Did they change their mind? Am I not, are they not going to sell it to me? Are they not going to rent it to me? Mm-hmm. And you start thinking about the things that could go wrong. And all of a sudden you're in what we call a scarcity mindset because your thought is, I won't get this thing. And your brain wants to go to worst case scenario. So if you're all of a sudden you're not going to get this thing, what does your brain start to make you think and feel? I'm asking you, Jake.
I'm not going to find another apartment. I don't know where I'm going to live. I need to get an apartment by XYZ date. And if this one falls through, then I'm screwed.
That's right.
The screwed feeling. It's the worst case scenario.
Yeah, it's the worst case scenario. And when you're thinking that one thought, what if it doesn't go through? Your brain starts to answer all the worst possibilities. Mm-hmm. And it starts to produce the chemicals that make you feel those thoughts. Mm-hmm. And so all that happens is you create this nasty cycle. Thinking, feeling, thinking, feeling, thinking, feeling, thinking, feeling. So that's the first thing that happens. And so the thing that I would say to you, right, is simply become aware of that. That's literally step one. Like, well, how do we get out of this? Well, first become aware of it. Mm-hmm. But then the second thing is you got to identify the thought that triggered all of this in the first place, which is simply, I might not get this place. Mm-hmm. And the second thought is, if I don't get this place, I might not find another one. Okay. So that's the thought that's triggering the feeling. You have to become aware that A, you're in the loop, and then B, you have to identify what is that single thought that's creating the loop. And right now it's, I might not get a place that fits me exactly how I want to fit because this is how I want to feel. Mm-hmm. Now that you've identified the thought, the next step is simply, well, what is a different thought that changes? A reframe. Yeah. What is a different thought? It doesn't, and it's not about being a positive thought. I will get my place. That's not it. That's actually not it, because that's a lie, right? Because that's just positive.
That actually puts more pressure on you getting this place. Right. So when it falls through, it's even worse.
That's right. Yeah. So then you say to yourself, okay, what's a different thought? Well, first thought could be, if I don't get the place, something else will come along. But you can even go down even further. There's always something new coming up. It may not be in the right time. It may not be any of that, but there's always going to be a new listing. And you can actually look at history. You don't have to convince yourself. If you go back if you literally can go on a website and be like, how many new rental listings came out or how many new house for sales came out in the last 6 months, it will tell you every day.
Every day. There's
something new will be there. So if you change the thought, well, I really like this place, but if I don't get it, that's all right. There's always something new coming out. Yeah. So if you can simply say, oh, there's something new coming out, how does that feeling change?
Yeah. And sometimes on top of just I've gotten to a point, because again, I had to become aware of this, and it took a long time, which is why we're doing a live stream. We're trying to shortcut that process. But like sometimes it's not even just like, okay, and I have like so many examples that have nothing to do with money or apartments or anything, but it's this like overemphasis on this one thought, right? And you like the tunneling in, right? And so now when something quote unquote bad happens or this thing falls through, I try to reframe not just there are other options, but those other options are probably better than the option that I'm going to gain something else. By losing this place, I'm actually going to gain something else. And like there's always something else that I can get or learn. So even here's an example. Speaking about all the strokes, I remember I was like, I had these strokes, and then I couldn't do anything for like a month, right? And I like, by not doing anything, I mean I had to stay home. Like I couldn't work, I couldn't think long enough to do anything. And I just remember thinking, I have like a month worth of time to go learn something that I've been putting off for a very long time. And like that's a completely I was like, I got excited about all of a sudden being not bedridden, but like house ridden, you know? And so it's like it's a sort of a reframing is a skill of resiliency in a way, where you actually look at a bad thing as a thing that could generate something better. You don't know what it is, but that's the possibility and the potential, etc. Mm-hmm. I had so many examples as you were talking, but I'll use a more general one. I know these people, and they're going to do the Whole30 diet back, 5 years ago. And I had done the Whole30 diet challenge or whatever. And it's hard, but the more you think of it as being difficult, the harder it becomes before you even start the thing. And I remember, with these friends, they were like, we're going to do it. It's the first time. And it was like 3 days leading up to it. And they were like, it was like that's all they could talk about was like, I got to eat all these things I want to eat before it happens. I have to like, they're like mentally preparing. It was this tunneling effect, this overemphasis of these 30 days are going to be so hard and I'm going to hate it. They are already hating it before it even began, which is basically what we're talking about here is like, if I lose the apartment, my life is screwed. And this was optional for them. They were like going into it. And I had realized that I had done that the first time too, the second time, whatever. And I had done it like 3 or 4 times, and I just stopped overemphasizing. I was like, I'm not even thinking about it. I'm just going to go into it. If it works out, great. If it's easy, it's great. If it's hard, it's great. Like, it doesn't really matter. But again, I think that's a different example than one I was going to give, because it's more general. It had nothing to do with money or anything like that. It was simply, I'm going to lose the things I like to eat. That was a scarcity mindset, and it changed how they operated for 3 days and made the actual event that they chose to do more difficult than it had to be because of a scarcity mindset. Anyway.
Yeah. No, that's actually a really good one.
Yeah.
Food is a really good one. That's definitely something we can go deeper on, because it's like, that is the easiest one to like imagine. Yeah. Especially when you take people who have like, I fast on a regular basis. I could do, anywhere between 3 days to 5 days. I'll fast, right? It just depends. I do it probably once a month. And then you tell somebody that, and they're like, oh my God, like, oh my God. And like, you have to understand that actually in ancient history, people could go literally 30 days. Like
breakfast is called break fast because people it's breaking the fast.
That's right. So it's kind of like, that is actually a perfect one to, especially for someone who's never done a fast, right? If you want to test your loss capacity, if you will.
Yeah.
Try a 3 day. Well, start at no medical.
One day.
But start at one day.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the other one that I was going to say, and this one's a little heavier, right? Because of the cancer. I remember the first drug worked a little bit, then it didn't work. And then I had to go to clinical trials. And when you go to clinical trials, right, they're just throwing shit against the wall to see what sticks. And I remember talking to the next oncologist that I was going to work with, and he goes, yeah, this one I think is going to work pretty well for you. We have we show that there's a lot of efficacy in this. And I said, great. Well, like, how long does it last? Right? Because these trials are all, they don't last forever. There's no cure in that sense. And he goes, oh, the data is showing like, we'll call it about a year to 18 months. I was like, okay. I go, what happens after that? And he goes, because there's an immediate sense of lack. He goes, don't worry, there's another one that I have already planned for you. And I even have one after that. So he had calmed my nerves about not having something that could save my life. Mm-hmm. Lo and behold, 4 months later, that first trial doesn't work. And it's like, uh-oh. So we're going to the next one.
Too fast.
But more importantly, because of the change in mutation, the next one actually no longer fit. So now I'm down to nothing.
Yeah.
And so now I operate and I say, well, what's happening? Like, what's the next clinical trial? And I ask him and he goes, I'm always looking. I was like, that's not helpful. So what do my scarcity, my lack, the mindset is like, shit, that's it. I have nothing else after this.
You're running out of trials.
I'm running out of trials. I'm running out of time. My life is running out. And I had to stop. And I had to stop and say, dude, this is not making me, it made me anxious every day. Don't get me wrong. I still deal with this, right? This is still something I deal with. I work really hard at these things. And I just recognized how I felt. And I said, well, what is the thought that is triggering how I'm feeling? And it was simply, another trial is not coming for me. There's nothing else for me. So I said, well, you have to change the thought. It's not about like something will happen. It's not that. You actually got to change it to be more practical. And the thought was simply, there's always new trials coming out. You never know. And I know that's not like, it's not the perfect scenario because this is life or death, right? It's not like a house, where you're like, oh, there's another house coming. Just a house. This is literally life or death. And you're just like, there's always new trials coming out. That doesn't make me completely rid my anxiety about life and my time running out. But what it does do, right, is say, it gives me hope and possibility. And possibility produces the proper chemical structure in the body to make you feel better, for lack of a better term. So confident, self-belief, all that stuff. So the thought simply went from, there's no more options to, you know what? There's always a new trial coming out. You never know. There's always a new trial coming out. You never know. And the last one of them actually worked and it helped, but at the time there was zero.
There's another live stream in here, as this happens every live stream, about a quicker phrase is you are what you think. And that comes back to what you've said earlier, the neuroimmunology.
Nice.
Did I get it?
You got it.
Okay. Where your body and your brain is going to operate the way you tell it to operate. And because it's producing the chemicals and all of so if you're thinking these things, the chemicals are believing it and infiltrating your body in a different way, or healing your body in a different way. So I always think about like when you are in the scarcity mindset of like, oh, I'm going to run out of trials, that creates the chemicals of scarcity, which guess what? Doesn't help in healing cancer.
No, it doesn't. It makes it worse.
Makes it worse. It is literally accelerating it in the wrong direction.
It's literally fueling
saying
cancer.
I am more in survival mode now than I was before.
Correct.
And I have to prepare for survival. And that is a shrinking feeling. And so that's why it's so hard. We said this earlier. It's hard to reframe these things because it goes against all of what your body and your brain wants to do, which is survival. But when you say there's always other trials coming, and while that's not a perfect thing, if your brain relaxes, like, oh, there's more trials coming, and it really believes that something will happen, then it produces the chemicals that say, hey, everything's like we can calm down a little bit because I believe that there are more trials coming. And then when your body has more bandwidth because of calming down, it has more ability to heal itself.
That's good.
And because, the trials thing, until there's a cure for cancer, right? Yep. Like you'll always be depending on trials, but people are cured from cancer and they do it from, they heal themselves. And so, I don't know.
So I'm gonna summarize it. Simply, this is perfect timing. This is the perfect way to sum it up.
Yeah.
But your inner state has to be greater than the outer state, meaning all the external inputs that are hitting you, right? Everything is hitting you in a way, and you have to be able to create an internal state that is stronger than the external state. And it starts with basic, simple thought changes. A lot of work. I say it's simple, but it's a lot of work every single day. When I get these inputs, I get scan inputs, blood work inputs, trial inputs, financial inputs, because cancer is expensive, right? Housing, all these inputs. And I have to work double, triple, quadruple on the mind to be able to say, how do I change the thought around this so that I can feel differently, so I can be a better person, so I can change my state of being. So I work on the inside, the inner state, so that the outer state doesn't crush me. And I'll be honest, the last 60 days it's been hard. I feel like a punching bag more in the last 60 days than I have in the last 9 months. So it's just constantly this idea of scarcity. And like, I have to look at every single thought and say, what is actually creating this, right? Because it comes down to the simple thoughts. Anyway, we can go on for this for forever. But so I don't know, what do people do here? This is what I'm going to say, and we'll summarize it. Look, be aware of a feeling you have. Notice the feeling that doesn't feel good, and then find out why you feel that way. And it's with a thought. It has nothing to do with outside of you, because outside of you is always going to happen. Find the thought that is triggering that emotion, and then figure out what is a different thought. Doesn't have to be a lie. It's not about positive thinking. Just think about a different way to think about it, reframe it, and practice that reframe, that simple thought, and do it as many times as you can, especially when you're aware that it's happening. That's my simple takeaway.
There you go. Well, I'm going to apply it to Supply Run in about like a minute.
Well, do it now. Yeah.
Because I was like, I keep looking at our timing.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good, actually. And so this is Breakthroughs Live by Supply Run. This is on the Supply Run YouTube channel. And people are like, what the hell is Supply Run? You can go to supplyrunshow.com and find out. And you can go watch our pilot season. You can apply to be a courier, etc. In order to find out. But we always like to take one of these little micro problems that we're talking about. This is a big micro problem. And say like, this is one of the reasons that we do Supply Run. And kind of relate to how Supply Run relates to this micro problem. So when we are on Supply Run, it is maximum. It's not even like abundance. It's not like the opposite of scarcity. It is more resiliency against negative thinking, or against the scarcity thoughts, right? So like, there are many problems that we face when we're doing Supply Run. There are many times where something doesn't work out, right? Like, we didn't get all of the items the way we wanted to initially. We didn't find the right person. We were running out of time. We're not going to have enough time to get from here to here. We need to go get this thing, but it's all a mess. And so there's this constant reframing of, we need to figure out something else. We need to. It comes back to this thing where like, we don't have enough time to just wallow in scarcity thinking. We're like, people are depending on us and we need to go do this thing. And we have to reframe our thoughts constantly to say, we can't get this item. So what are we doing instead? And that's sort of what it is. It's like, what are we doing instead? We can't just like, oh, we can't get it, we failed. It was, we can't get it, we need to get a different item. We need to let that item go and get something else. We need to explain to people like, this is what we got to do instead later after the fact. Anyway.
Well, Supply Run, there's no time for scarcity in Supply Run because it's a mission. And it's like, I remember the toilet that we got was getting like basically a porta pot. It was, pun intended, shitty. And I was like, dude, my scarcity mindset kicked in. I was like, oh my God, this is not. And then I realized, dude, we're bringing so many other great things. Like, we'll find something else. Like, there's another one on the way. We'll figure it out. But anyway, there was no time for that. And when you don't allow that time for scarcity and you change the way you reframe it, that's why supply run worked. That's why it did what it's supposed to do. It
Yeah.
reframed, it helped and forced us to reframe at all the times.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, what I realize every time we relate to supply run doesn't need to exist, right? It is actually, we are injecting, we just did this on the last live stream. We are manufacturing novelty, and a bunch of other things, but the constraints, the rules, the criteria of doing a supply run forces all of these things to happen in a very short time frame. Because right now you can take this live stream and you're like, I'm going to go reframe my thoughts, and then you can take years to do it, because like there is no boxed in pressure to like do it now. There's no stakes involved, and that's what like the whole mission, and there's a time factor, and it's all novel, etc. You put that into these constraints, and because of the constraints, you experience these things much faster because you have to, or you give up and go home. And that no one wants to do that, so they'll do whatever it takes. Anyway.
Yep. All right. Well, so speaking of supply run,
you
can watch we're basically, you're better at this part.
Yeah. So I mentioned a little bit before, we need to have a question on this, which we always forget to do. But if you experience scarcity mindset and you've just now realized this, you've become aware of it, I don't know, provide some examples in a comment, because we'd love to hear what other people feel. And then, in terms of supply run, you can go to supplyrunshow.com and it will explain what it is. It will give you a link to the actual pilot season that we made. We're developing official season 1 this year. And if you are interested in being the courier, which is the person who comes along with us to experience this shit show, positive shit show, and forces all of the things that we talk about here, then you can also click a button there that says apply to be a courier or something like that. And that's pretty much the summary.
All right. Big gulps, huh?
Well, see you later.
See you later.